This is your time. We can go over whatever. I got your video. We'll go over your video. We can talk about training. Really, kind of anything is up. I'm super interested by you and you did the true form, and I wonder what you run like when you're not on that too. Like, what do you think? What do you notice? What do you normally train on? What do you?
So normally I'm just outside. I enjoy being outside running and not on treadmills. The true form was weird. That was the first time I used it. It's always been
Really?
recorded in the gym. First time I used it, and it was I felt like I couldn't get my footing. Like I was trying to go like get forward on the machine, and it like started kicking up like fast, right? And I was like, oh, okay, let me slow it down. And like, so I was like, you can see
Yeah,
in the video, the first half, I was like, I felt like I was leaning, and then I felt like I was gonna fight it, and then feel it back a bit. It was interesting. I think there has to be more benefits to running with the true form. So I'm interested in trying to get more reps on that. But when it's nice out, especially being here in Nashville, like I've been just usually what happens. So I have a toddler at home, so I try to wake up before everyone else wakes up and try to get outside
yeah.
and just do my thing. So I don't go to the gym. It just saves me some time. So that's usually how I run. But I don't know. I felt like when I watched the video back, I felt outside of the swaying. I felt like that's how I normally run
Okay.
outside. Probably even I would say the true form I felt like was easier in the sense of like people aren't outside hills up and down like mess with my lean and like how I'm stepping.
Yeah.
I feel like that throws me off a little bit. Just a little.
Because you'll see how there's three things that I look at. I look at arm swing, the lean, and then the hardest skill is that gliding where you leave the ground and moving purely horizontal. And typically, the hardest skill is the gliding, and that's teaching people to push the ground backwards and move forward. And on a normal treadmill, it's really hard to teach that because the belt's moving back, and you're trying to get someone to push back on something that's also moving versus the true form, you're forced to push back. That's the only way to do it. So it's kind of like it's good that it does make you propel yourself the way that we should be propelling ourselves outside. Um, so I've used them before, and there's definitely some benefits, like we just talked about with the pushing. The one thing I did find hard was kind of like where your stride is, your length in relationship to the curve, and like just like pacing is hard with it. But I definitely think there's a lot of value. But I would be interested to see too if you get a video of you either outdoors or on another treadmill. I just want to see if there's any differences because your mechanics look really good. On the treadmill. There's only one thing that I have to even try to offer, but otherwise, you're doing pretty much what I teach. So did anything stand out to you at all? Like you said, the posture thing, but did anything else stand out to you at all?
I don't know much about running. I've just been doing your course, right? And learn to run. I always feel like my stride is off, right? Whether it's like rotating, even like when you're pushing off at the very end, toe, right? And you're like gliding. Sometimes I feel like my heel rotating. Like am I like almost like duck walking?
Mm,
Sometimes I
mm.
feel like is that it? And maybe when I'm watching this, I almost wonder if like I'm not pushing enough because like I feel like I think I'm not reaching as far out with my when I'm landing. I don't think I'm reaching as much, but I don't feel
No,
like I'm
you're
actually
not.
getting that push, like the push with the tush you're talking about. I don't know.
But
Like, should I feel that in my legs when I do that? Like,
so here's that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the thing: if you it's slower speeds, it's not efficient to push to have a really long stride at slower speeds. So if you were to try to overemphasize that pushing back at the speed, it would feel awkward and it would actually be more inefficient. So at the pace that you're going at now, I find that people you don't really start actually feeling the glutes engage until you start running what I call your gear two, or a speed where you can't hold a full conversation, but you can get a few words out. It's a pace that you could pull back and run and recover. It wouldn't feel great versus not the sprint, but you won't really start feeling that pushing until, like for me, uh, even like a 7:30, 8 miles per hour or 7:30 pace, I start to feel it a little bit, but not till I get to a 7 minute mile or an 8.5, where I really start to feel that longer stride. Because ideally, if we were to have you run in a sand, I should be able to tell how fast you're moving based off of the distance between each step. The faster that you go, there should be a greater distance between. But if you have a greater distance between each step at a slower speed, it's really inefficient. So you're pushing, your stride looks good. There's nothing that I would change about that. The only one thing, and this is what the last thing that took me to learn, I have a video I want you to watch. Look at my arms. So what you'll notice is I'm not really using my arms. I'm bending at the elbows. I'm doing more of what I call drumming. Instead, ideally, the arms should be moving forward and back in sync with the legs. I think sometimes we think don't um, minimize arm movement, but we want the arms to sync up with the legs, but they should be moving at the shoulder girdle. Let me see if another video. So there, like if I'm going up and down, I'm more drumming, going up and down. You're not doing that. But ideally, you see how my arm is going both forward and back. It's going further back than it is forward, just like our stride. But the arm should be in sync, moving forward and back with the legs. And if we look back at your video, again, it's not bad at all. But you could just be even a little bit more efficient with your arm swing, is all.
And it should be more of a swing back, you're saying?
What's that?
You're saying it should be more like going back?
No, it should be more like, let me see if you can see me. So ideally, like if I'm running at a slower speed, my arms are doing kind of like you're doing. They're going forward and back, and it's all coming from my shoulder. I'm not doing the elbow. It's not that I'm bending and straightening my elbow up. You're doing pretty good. I would like to see if at higher speeds what you do, because ideally, like no matter what, we don't want our arm to go really far forward unless we're all out sprinting. So
Yeah.
if we had a ratio, it is more back than it is forward. Like I don't want to go too far forward, which you're not. You're kind of here and you're doing it, but just having the arms be a little more relaxed, like totally relaxed, and have them drop down. And then they're just sawing forward and back in sync with the legs, but they're relatively relaxed. But it's all coming from my shoulder and not coming from my elbow at all. And like you watch your right arm when it goes forward at the very end, there's just a little bit of this up, just a little up. Versus instead, by having the lean, ideally the wrists stay below the elbows at all times because they're going forward and back versus forward and just that slight bit of up. And if we can take the vertical out and take some of the up out, it just is going to help over the long run. And your goals, I think I saw, you're not really training for any race specifically. You're just doing more for like just cardio and stuff. So even if you didn't change one thing here, you'd be good as long as you don't overdo it with the training. And that's where the training plans are helpful to make sure that you slowly adapt to it. But you're oddly, for someone that doesn't know a lot about running, and that's where I'm like, how much of this is the true form versus how you run? Because it looks good. Like it looks really good. This is not common for people to already have that gliding. But watch your right arm right here. It's minimal there.
Okay.
Can you see what I'm talking about? Just that light little up at the front.
Yeah, I see that at the very end there.
So again, it's subtle. It's not a whole lot, but just I'd be interested to see what paces, how are your arms moving, and making sure they're not up intense. That's why I have in that 7 day mechanics experience, kind of having the shoulders blades down in your back pockets, and gravity is kind of helping to keep them down versus going up. And then I also have in that course too the angle. It's not arms aren't forward. It's at this kind of 45-degree angle where if I'm sawing, I'm making kind of like a top of a triangle. I'm not going out like this. So arms are relaxed and just going forward and back, forward and back. But I would love to see another video of you sometime. Send it to me with you either outdoors or on a tread. But honestly, there's nothing that I would really change besides just a little tip on the arm swing. Otherwise, it looks really good.
Okay. So I did have a question. Like, can we? Sorry, are we still? Can we switch to like training?
Whatever you want. Yep.
So, as I'm getting more and more into running, I'm not sure. Like, I don't have a sense yet of like what's good and bad in terms of like soreness and recovery. Right? I don't have that like sensitivity yet. So like, I'll run, and then the next day, like I feel like my calves are like super sore. Right? I'll get some weird. I'll get some weird soreness in different spots here and there. I usually don't feel anything like tightness in my shoulders or anything like that. But usually it might be like my knee here and there, like after a run. So I just ran this morning. And so I'm like expecting tomorrow. I try to stretch a lot afterwards and see if like that helps. But usually the next morning, like my calves will be like super tight, on fire. And I don't know if that's is that a result of one, I just need to, condition and get into just more running and stuff pounding. Kind of like, am I pushing? Am I actually like pushing off? Like, is that normal? I don't know. Like, again, maybe it's just stuff so new in the
Let
process
me
here. Is it
let
too
me ask
premature to call it?
let me ask you this. Is it hilly where you run?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm running through like parks and like just neighborhoods, so it's not like completely flat, but there's definitely I wouldn't call them. They're not like hills like you would run like hills for example. Right? It's
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
that. Just regular roads, and so I do see, and that's where that throws me off because I'm like in my head going through the cues, right? I'm like, make sure I'm leaning, I'm getting good stride. I'll do that for the straightaway, and then I start like a hill. I'm like, oh wow, I gotta like lean back to go downhill, or like I have to like I feel like I have to shorten up my stride a bit as I go uphill, but like lean more, and it throws me off. I gotta like rethink everything when I come back to the straightaway. So there's a little bit of that. I wouldn't call it like extreme hills. If that makes sense.
I got you. Because here's the reality: is if you ran on a totally flat surface, you shouldn't be your calves shouldn't get sore. You shouldn't be using your calves to propel you. Um, Going uphill, you have to use your calves, but going on a flat surface, what you may be doing, that's why I want to see you on the ground because the way you're running there, you're not really using your calves on that true form. But what you're doing in the first episode of my podcast is why are my calves tight, and it's talking about the same exact thing. Ideally, you want the calves as soon as you land to the ground, they're just naturally absorbing the impact. But we don't want to right before you leave the ground push downwards through the ground, which will cause you to go up. So that's if you're getting knee soreness and calf tightness, and it's not like crazy hilly, then it would be good to work on that because that's what sometimes the skills are different treadmill versus outdoors because I'd be I'd be super impressed if you were running exactly the same way as you were on that true form outdoors, because again, it's a skill to learn. Like it doesn't just happen naturally, and that kind of forces you to do it. But if we can emulate the mechanics or mimic the mechanics of how you move on the true form, staying low, pushing the ground backwards, not this up and down, then the only thing that can help make you go up when you're running is either your quads or your calves. And so if your knees are sore too, you're probably using your knees and loading, pushing down instead of just pushing purely backwards. Because if your calves are getting that tight consistently, that's not normal. Like I don't want that to be the case because the calves shouldn't get sore repeatedly like that. They would adapt. But if you're running like even a mile, it can be 1,800 steps. That's like 900 reps each side of using your calves. It can definitely, and I used to deal with that back in the day before. I used to have to dry needle my calves. They would always get tight because I was always, I was using them. Like I'll show you a video of me running back in the day. And even I was a physical therapist then, and I still had like a lot of the knowledge, but I just didn't implement it yet. And that's where the videoing yourself can be super valuable to learning. While I'm pulling this up, what questions do you have about that? Did that answer anything for you?
Oh yeah, that helps a lot. And I think my follow up after that, I'm trying to figure out what is like the best. So I reviewed all the training plans, and they seem to be more for like 5, 10K, and like an actual race, which I think is maybe that's just use one of those for part of my conditioning. Or is there like right now what I've been doing? I've been trying to do like heart rate training, right? Because I've been just going on like long runs. I try to do like 45 minutes. Try to do like once or twice a week. But I want to start ramping. Well, I want to get your thoughts on what that program looks like. I've used this as like general preparedness, health, right? For some of like the other sports I actually do. So I don't want to get like too sore, so I can't play my sport, right? But I need enough that I can actually see like that return, right? So like I said, I'm running like once or twice a week right now, about 45 minutes a run, and I'm just trying to keep my heart rate like at a low, constant pace. I see there's like interval runs and stuff, which I think is fine. I've never done them, but I'm just curious, like, would you continue to recommend that for someone in my position and what kind of results I'm looking for?
Yeah, if your goal isn't really, if you don't really care about how fast, and I think you said that you don't really care about how fast, um, hold on, I can't do two things at once. Let me pull this up real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. These are good questions. I appreciate this. Let's see. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So here's the thing. I think if you truly your goal of running is cardiovascular fitness. It is some mental, just to clear your head, to help with the other things that you're doing as well. And you really don't care about the pace, then you don't really need to do interval training. Like you don't. I mean, if you're trying to just kind of get out there and move, just going on keeping your heart rate elevated for a sustained period of time has just a lot of benefits to it. But if you said, I do want to improve my VO2 max with jujitsu, you can get winded very quickly. Doing interval training would be a good idea to help. There'd be more carryover with doing interval training to help with jujitsu than there would be of just going. Because think about how hard you're working. Ideally with jujitsu, you're not working super, super, super hard, otherwise you tank out. But if you're running and you're going really, really low and you never even get to that effort level that you get to jujitsu, there's not as much of a conversion or transfer of skills with that. So having it be where you work harder and then active recovery, work harder and then active recovery like intervals, you will see a tremendous improvement in your pace, even if you don't care about it. But that's what helps with any athlete or any sport where it's kind of this more kind of work harder, recover, work harder, recover. I think intervals would help you tremendously with that. And then you can use your heart rate based training. Like there's different ways. I have the three gears that I talk about: gear one, gear two, and gear three. And there's different ways to measure how do you know what gear you're in. It's different for everybody. You can use either the percentage of your heart rate, or you can use your percentage or your rate of perceived exertion, how hard you're working, or you can also just use the talk test. So ideally, like if you're on a Tuesday intervals, you're fluctuating between gear two and gear one, where you're running faster, running slower. These are the percentages of like what you'll see with the heart rate response. It will go up and then come down. It will go up and come down. And so it's just how hard that you work and for how long. And that's what the training plans will give you that. It will give you um, a specific um, intervals and like how long to work. Like here, let me zoom in on this. I do think following just one of the programs would help. But like here on Tuesday, it's 30 seconds of gear two, 90 seconds of gear one. So pretty much you're getting a 1-to-3 ratio of running harder and then 90 seconds of active recovery. And you're doing that for 8 rounds. So it's 16 minutes total. And if you click on each of these, it's interactive. It'll come up with a video of me actually explaining what it is more. But I do think that just picking one plan, and you can always adjust based off of your schedule, but the Tuesdays and Thursdays intervals is where you will see the most improvement in your ability to run. Instead of just going out and just doing it and consistent by fluctuating and being uncomfortable and challenging yourself and recovering, that's where you'll really see a lot of the improvement.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, as far as intervals, the heart rate is a great way. I have a podcast episode where I talked about that. Like the heart rate it's like looking under the hood of the car. It's a snapshot. It's an actual objective data of how you're doing. And everybody has a certain heart rate peak where they start to fatigue out. Like I've been doing heart rate based running for so long that I know if I keep it between 155 and 165, I'm pretty good. But if I start going 170, 175, I'm starting at 180, I'm going to get in a zone where I have to walk after that versus pull back. So you get to know your body and know how long you can sustain. And your heart rate is just a great indicator of, harder you work, the more fatigued, your oxygen demand goes up. Your heart rate will have to increase to get more oxygen throughout your body. And doing the intervals also helps to prevent that fatiguing because some of the byproduct of aerobic exercise is lactic acid. If you get your body used to handling that and buffering that, you don't fatigue quite as much. You'll be able to run at a faster clip and for a longer period of time before hitting that wall.
Take some notes on my end. So.
Yeah.
The only other question I had on my end here, I feel like there's like two schools of thought in terms of like footwear and what you're actually supposed to like be using. So in the video there, I was running. I think just because jiu-jitsu is barefoot, I'm typically more comfortable barefoot anyways. But when I was younger, I would always all sports wear shoes, whatever regular tennis shoes. What are your thoughts? What should we be wearing? I don't want to say like what's optimal, I guess.
Yeah.
But like there's just everything online is just like
yeah. Did you find me from being on the Mark Bell podcast? Is that where you saw me or no?
No, I actually just came across your Instagram profile.
Okay.
I was following you for a bit, and I was like, yeah, let's just do it. I need to.
Do you know the Mark Bell podcast at all or no?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, I think I've seen a few of his episodes. Yeah.
Like Nsima and the Andrew guy, they're big into jiu-jitsu and they're all about the barefoot and they wear the shoes that you're kind of talking about. So here's the thing. It's so there's no right or wrong. It's so individual to you. Ideally, shoes is a way that we can have an external kind of cushion, cartilage, like a way that I know every time I hit the ground, every action equal and opposite. I want to buffer my knees. I want to buffer my body some. I don't want my body to take all of that stress. Yes, the body will adapt as we start to offer more stress, but it's nice after shoes, after a long period of time, you see they lose their ability to cushion, they get worn down. We just get a new pair versus giving all that stress to your body. That's where we can get injured or get just too much. So to me, as a physical therapist, injury prevention above all, shoes should just be protection. They're cushion. But they do on the spectrum of the more cushion there is, it does take away some performance because the shoe is, if it's absorbing some impact, you're not using that to help generate speed. So there's benefits to going in minimalist or barefoot. You will take more force. You will improve your foot muscles ability and your foot's ability to take stress, but it's easy to do too much too soon and to kind of overuse and get injuries. I think the best way is fluctuating. If you're going for a long run, having minimal shoes might not be the best idea. It's easier to overdo it. Maybe on those days, having a little bit more of a cushion to it. But there's no right or wrong. And it's mainly from an injury standpoint. If people switch to a minimalist too quick and they're used to shoes, their heel sits lower, they'll get calf issues or Achilles issues if they don't kind of ease into it quite as much. But there's benefits to going and running in the shoes you were in, and there's also benefits to having a little bit more cushion where you feel more comfortable hitting the ground harder to create more force to be able to work on speed. But if you're doing something like jiu-jitsu that is barefoot, it probably would be better for you to use more of a minimalist approach to force you to have better foot strength. But the other thing is the foot, there's a point in diminishing return. Like, yes, a weak foot can really mess you up, but there's not a point like where your foot gets so strong that your foot's your foundation, like it just is like a good solid foundation. It doesn't really, there's not like different muscles where if you keep improving, you're going to see improving your performance. The role of the foot is just to help transfer forces from your body through the ground to move. So it doesn't need to be like a muscular, huge foot. So I think we go on crazy ends of the spectrum and say no one should wear shoes, everyone should wear shoes, never, whatever. It's just so individualistic if you really know what you're talking about. So yeah.
No, that was great. I've never heard anyone put it in that sense. Just like shoes wear down, right? So like you're taking that impact with this here.
Yeah, I have a quote that I say of it's easier and cheaper to replace your shoes than your knees. No, it's like we want to take force, but we want to see, can we just mitigate it in such a way that it's not too much, you know?
Yeah.
It's just allowing your body to adapt. But there's a point where, like I said, your foot strength, once you have a certain point, it can support your body weight. If you were in the military and you're working on rucking and using book bags and extra weight, that's a different story. But it's you don't need to have a crazy, crazy, crazy strong foot. This having weak foot is something to address, but it doesn't need to be over the top, is what I'm trying to get at.
I like that. No, I appreciate that. Clear things up significantly. Otherwise, I think that was all my questions. Got everything answered. Honestly, I thought the stride was going to take for the stride video was going to be significantly more.
No, that's what I want to see. I think I sent the instructions on how to video yourself outside. If you could do that, whether it's a parking lot, because I'm really curious to see if you do. But since you told me about what's going on with your calves and your knees, my guess is you, like everybody else, just needs to learn how to glide and move horizontal. And that's where, like, the tennis ball necklace can give you some of that feedback. If it's going up and down and loud and hitting you, learning to move in such a way that minimizes the sound and it not hitting you can help to take that jump out and glide. But I might what you do with the true form could be a training tool to say run the way you do outside, just like you do on the true form. Having some more like mindfulness of thinking, okay, while I'm on there, what do I notice? What is this forcing me to do? How can I mimic the mechanics and do this on a ground that's not moving? And teaching that, just pushing back, pushing back, pushing back. But yeah, we'll reconvene to just shoot me that video or upload that video, and then we can either just talk about or message or what. I don't think you'll need a whole lot. You're on a good pathway, but I'd be really curious to see. And this would be a good idea for a post too, because a lot of people. I've talked a little bit about it on my Learn to Run, but not enough. And I think it's an interesting topic that needs to be brought to the forefront.
I like it. Yeah, I'll definitely video and I'll send something.
Cool. Yeah, great job. Do you have any other questions for me?
No, thank you so much. This is great. I really appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure. Feel free, if you have any questions with the training plans or whatever, just shoot me an email. I'm good about getting back. Better on email than on. Yeah, we haven't mainly communicate on email. We haven't done Instagram as much, but yeah, feel free. I'm an open door as long as you're in the club. I'm yours. So just let me know if I can help at all.
I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.